What is business credit? I mean, like, how is it different than, let's just say, like personal credit?
Yeah, and I want to make sure this episode is as valuable as possible for your listeners. I want to get as tangible. Hope you guys can have a piece of paper, take notes, things like that. But I want to give you guys some actual tangible strategies here.
Love it.
So when it comes to business credit versus personal credit, and so you can build business credit scores, which it's there's business credit bureaus like Dun& Bradstreet and Experian Small Business and Equifax Small Business. Building the business credit scores is not necessary to get really, really good approvals on these business credit cards.
Interesting.
The most important thing is having a good, strong personal credit report. And so, so the banks are looking at much more than just a score. Someone can have a 790 personal credit score, but they have a very thin account history. And so some of the things that the banks are looking for is one, definitely clean payment history. They don't want to see anything negative in the last 2 years. If you have delinquencies, late payments, charge-offs, collections, I'd recommend to find a credit repair company to help get those disputed and removed, which is definitely possible. So don't think you're screwed because you have negatives on your report. Go find a credit repair company, get those disputed and removed. So that's first step is your payment history. Next is the amount of accounts you have on your profile. So the more accounts you have, the better. And the higher your limits collectively on your primary personal credit cards, also the better. And so someone that has maybe 2 personal credit cards with combined limits of only $2,000, that's a very thin credit report. Only 2 accounts, $1,000 or $2,000 in limits, whatever I mentioned. It's very thin. And so you want to be getting personal credit cards on a consistent basis, but also not too fast. Because if you have more than 2 personal credit accounts open in the last 6 months, and then you go apply for a business credit card, you're probably going to get denied because of too many recently opened credit accounts. So you do want a ton of personal accounts, but you want to do them over time. So I'd recommend to do basically 1 to 2 every 6 months. And ideally, before you do business credit applications, you want to have at least 5 personal primary accounts with collective limits of at least $15,000. These are limits from your primary credit cards, not limits from your authorized users. So that kind of covers the amount of primary accounts you want and kind of covers the amount of collective limits you want between those cards, which ideally it's $15,000 or more. Ideally, it's $30,000, $50,000, $80,000 collectively. So we talked about the amount of accounts you want, talked about the collective credits, collective limits, talked about the payment history. Next, we want to look at the credit age. So the higher average age of your report, the stronger your profile is going to be. So if you have less than 2 years of average age, that's a very young profile. And so an easy way to increase that age is by getting added to someone else's card that has much bigger age. So that card reports to your credit profile and then increases your age. It's called an authorized user. So that's how you increase your average age. And then from there, one thing to also think about when you're applying for these personal credit cards to increase the amount of accounts you have and increase your personal credit limits, you want to be doing this at the top banks. Because if you get a Chase personal credit card, it's a tier 1 bank, it looks way better on your credit profile than if you get a credit card at a credit union or a retail store account. Those are tier 4 low tier accounts. And so you want to focus on the big banks like Chase, Bank of America, Citi, Wells Fargo, American Express is up there, but not as high as Chase. But you really want to focus on Chase first because those are tier 1 cards and they look better on your profile. And Chase also gives much higher limits than most banks. So now we just talked about the type of personal credit cards you can apply for and get on your report. Now I want to touch on high limit personal credit cards because we want to maximize every personal credit card that reports to your profile because it needs to be very strategic. So some of my high limit personal favorite high limit personal cards is the Chase Freedom Unlimited, the Chase Sapphire Reserve or the Sapphire Preferred, the Built credit card, which is issued by Wells Fargo. The Apple card is a high limit card. It's a lower tier card, but it's a high limit card, which really helps. And so by applying for those cards, there's a significant chance you'll get a much higher limit than if you apply to other cards. And again, that collective limit of personal cards you have on your profile is crucial because the higher that is, the better you're going to do on limits on business credit cards.
Very interesting. I don't think I knew half that information, right? And I've been doing it for a long time, so it goes to show, right? But I'm not in the credit world every day, and if I don't know half that information, people watching, dude, like they don't know, like people don't understand anything you just mentioned for the most part, right? So very valuable. I have a couple of the cards that you just mentioned. I got to get a couple of the other ones, but I've had my Chase cards since the day I turned 18.
Nice.
Chase was the first one that I ever got. I got I think at the time it was the preferred, might have been the reserve, I can't remember, but and then I got the Southwest card, right?
Cool.
I want to talk for a minute too, before we get too far, for people who maybe are beginning, getting started. Maybe somebody's watching, they're 18 years old, they're 19, right? And they don't have any credit, like talk to me about, is no credit bad credit? So that's my first question, right? I think there's a misunderstanding around that, right? Mm-hmm. Is no credit bad credit? And then also, how do you get started day one if you've never had credit in your life? And maybe people are watching, they're afraid, like they don't know what to do. They're like, dude, where do I go? Like, how do I start?
Yeah, really good questions. So no credit is bad credit. You have a credit score and it might be good, like a 730, 740, but that credit profile is not going to do much for you because the history is so thin. The age is probably super young. There's not many accounts. So no credit is essentially bad credit because it's not going to do anything for you. Mm-hmm. So how you get started, like if you're starting from ground floor or even like just, towards the beginning of your journey in credit, I would make sure you get added onto 2 to 3 very strong authorized users. You don't want to do more than 2 or 3, but basically reach out to someone in your network. Maybe it's a family member, maybe it's a significant other, maybe it's a good friend. They have had a credit card like you've had since you were 18. So that's, about a decade.
Yeah, I'm 29
year
now,
old.
yeah.
Cool. So find someone with at least a 5-year-old credit card that can add you as an authorized user. There's no negative to the person adding you because the bank is just going to send them a card with your name on it and they can just cut the card up. So you have no access to their account or anything like that, but it's going to report that card on your profile as an authorized user. The only card you don't want to do this with is American Express, because when American Express reports as an authorized user, the date of opening shows the date that you were added. So it doesn't actually increase your age because it doesn't backdate it essentially.
Got it.
So I would get added at basically for 2 authorized users. Ideally the limit's over 10K. Most importantly, the age is over 5K.
Yeah.
Or at least something over your current average.
Phenomenal
That's going to
advice.
increase your age. Next, like if you're brand new, you probably want to start with a couple secured credit cards. So go, type in secured credit cards. Bank of America has a good one. That's also a good bank to build a relationship at, which we'll get into relationships soon. But get 1 or 2 secured credit cards. And then in a few months, then go for something like the Chase Freedom Unlimited, which is an elementary card at Chase, but it comes with an incredible amount of benefits. And I consider it one of the high limit cards. And you're building a relationship at Chase.
Walk me through a few of the benefits with the Chase. You said Freedom Unlimited.
Yeah.
Walk me through a couple.
You just get a lot of points on a lot of the purchases. So most people, where they spend their money, restaurants, grocery stores, a lot of the normal purchases that people have, that card gives you a lot of rewards for those transactions.
Got it. Okay. Really quick, I want to ask you too a question, and I'm sure we'll talk more about American Express in a little while. But when you have an American Express, okay, for people watching, when you essentially don't have a limit with a lot of the American Express cards, right? Like and it's a charge card, so it's like, in theory you have a limit. It's probably not actually unlimited, right? But like on paper you don't have a limit, okay? So how does it report in terms of your total credit? So like, let's just say I have 50 grand credit limit with like Chase Sapphire Reserve, right? And then I've got this American Express and I go and charge 10 grand on it. Does it show 100% credit card usage?
I'm glad you asked. So this is a reason why I don't recommend American Express charge cards, personal ones, when you're trying to build strong credit, because it doesn't report a limit to your profile. It shows a high credit amount of like what the highest a balance was in the card, but it doesn't show a limit. And so again, when we rewind to building your collective personal credit limits, you want that to be as high as possible. When you get an American Express personal gold, for example, or the personal platinum, another example. It doesn't show a limit, so it doesn't build your collective limits. So if you're trying to build strong credit, I wouldn't get the personal charge cards. You can easily get the business ones, like the Amex Business Gold is one I use probably the most.
Yeah.
Like you get 4x on so many different amazing categories. The Business Platinum, also a pretty good card, good travel benefits, not really good for generating points. But if you want the personal charge cards, like the Personal Gold, Personal Platinum at Amex, I would just wait a little. I would focus on the high limit personal cards to build up your limits first. Then you have a strong base and foundation of credit, and then you can, get the other cards at later point.
Got it. So then at what point, in your opinion, like now let's talk to the entrepreneur, somebody who's, they already run a company or they're getting started, right? They're building a business in any industry, right? And let's just say maybe they've got pretty good credit personally, like they've got maybe, I don't know, 750 credit score, they've kind of worked on it throughout their life, they've got a couple credit cards. Like now they want to maybe go and they probably want to come, get advice from credit stacking, right? That's something they should probably do. So, and we'll link all that down below. But what should they do to go now? Should they go to like Dun & Bradstreet? Like, should they go down that rabbit hole to try to start building their business credit? Or should they just go try to get this 0% funding if they need more funding?
I think the two things I would focus on before the business credit profiles, the business credit scores, is making sure the personal profile is super optimized and making sure you're building relationships with the right banks. And so again, when we look at personal credit optimization, focus on all the stuff we've been talking about. That's how you optimize a strong profile. The one thing, just to add one point on the optimization, and I said it before, but it's really important. You don't want to apply for more than 2 personal credit cards in a 6-month window, because that's going to shoot yourself in the foot. I see sometimes people make the mistake and apply for 4 or 5 personal cards in the same week. And then now they're screwed for a whole year. They're not going to get business credit for at least a year because there's too many recently opened personal credit accounts. So I don't want you guys to make that mistake ever. So that's the optimization. Secondly, making sure you're building relationships with the right banks. And so you can do that in 2 different ways. You can do that through bank accounts, or you can do that through the credit cards. And so you build a credit relationship through the credit cards or just the banking relationship. So for any, entrepreneur like you're talking about, I would for sure be banking at Chase. Like have your business checking account at Chase, because the limits on Chase cards are generally way more significant than at any other bank. And that relationship really helps you get those high limits. The second bank I would prioritize building a relationship at would be Bank of America. Bank of America does give really good limits, and there's 3 0% cards at Bank of America, but they're very relationship based. So for someone that has no relationship at Bank of America, they're not going to get a business credit card approved. Like it, for sure, they're not going to. And so you have to build that relationship with Bank of America. And again, you can do this through the credit cards, personal credit cards, or through a bank account. And so if you're an entrepreneur trying to get access to capital, I would start the relationship at Chase, maybe then apply for the Chase business credit card. Maybe hopefully you get like a 50K limit if you do it right. Then after you get that, then shift your business operations, your cash flow into your Bank of America account. Do that for 2 to 6 months, and then get the business credit cards from Bank of America.
Yeah, phenomenal advice. Is there a credit score that people should focus on the personal side before they ever even attempt to go get like funding or anything like on the business side? Like, is there a magical number where it's like, dude, once you have like an 800, then you're good to go?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked. So really the score that I really love seeing people have at minimum before business credit applications is a 720. Okay. When you're 720 to 750, you're in a pretty good spot. Minimum 700. Like don't even try anything if you're not even at 700 yet. If you're gonna do it in the 600s, you're gonna probably fail. So 720 and above, I really love to see, but above a 750, you're golden. Like the difference between 750 and an 820 is not that significant when we talk about business credit cards.
Interesting. What about on the personal side, just out of curiosity? I know we're kind of pivoting a little, so I don't want to go too far. We can save it for a little while, but like, I'm just curious, from a 750 to an 820, like what's the why should somebody even want to get an 820, 30, 40, 50 credit score? Seems like there's not much benefit after, like you said, like a 750.
There's not much benefit, but it does help out with mortgage approvals, mortgage rates, auto loan rates.
Got it.
That's where it's really significant. And that score does help with your credit card interest if you do end up paying credit card interest.
Got it. Yeah, I could totally see that. Yeah, anytime I've had a really high credit score, like I've financed a few cars, obviously. I've owned a lot of cars in my life. A lot of them I bought in cash, some of them I financed, and I get like a really low rate
Nice.
when I have like a 780, credit score, right?
Yeah.